Good morning, students. Welcome to this paper with psychological competencies. And today we are moving towards the block 3, where we have emotional intelligence, positive psychological capital, and psycho-cybernetics. Okay, so let us take each one. Yeah. So the objective is to explain the concept of emotional intelligence, describe the nature and characteristics of emotional intelligence, explain different components of emotional intelligence and the importance of emotional intelligence, explain self-management exercises for building emotional intelligence, right? Okay, so according to the APA, that is the American Psychological Association, emotion is defined as a complex reaction pattern involving experiential behavior and physiological elements. In simple terms, emotions are how individuals deal with matters or situations they find personally significant. Intelligence, as Robert Sternberg defined, intelligence as the mental abilities necessary for adaptation as well as shaping and selection of any environmental context. So, according to Barron, intelligence is defined as the individual's abilities to understand complex ideas, to adapt effectively to the environment, to learn from experience, to engage and involve from reasoning, to overcome obstacles by careful thoughts. Now, when you put this together, emotion and intelligence, that is emotional intelligence, EI, refers to the ability to perceive, control, and evaluate emotions. Some researchers suggest that emotional intelligence can be learned and strengthened, while others claim it is inborn characteristics. Psychologists John Mayer and Peter Salovey introduced the concept of emotional intelligence in the early 1900s. According to them, emotions are internal events that coordinate physiological responses, um, cognitions, and conscious awareness. They defined emotional intelligence as the ability to perceive emotions, to generate emotions, as to assess thoughts, so understand emotion and emotional knowledge, and to regulate emotions reflectively so as to promote emotional intellectual growth. Okay, so there are many more definitions given in your book, right? So when you look at your textbook, you'll find a lot of definitions given, more or less all boiling down to the same, that it is the abilities to be able to think, to be able to being, right, to be able to understand, and to be able to cope with the environmental demands. Okay, so you go through all these definitions, right, so that you'll have a better understanding of what is EI, that is emotional intelligence. Now, what is the nature of emotional intelligence? Now, according to Goldman, the nature of emotional intelligence can be summarized as, right, as a more powerful than the intelligence. That is more EI, that is emotional intelligence, is more powerful than the IQ. While IQ contributes only 20% of the success in life, the other forces contribute the rest. Unlike IQ, emotional intelligence may be the best predictor of success in life. Emotional intelligence is not fixed genetically. Rather, it is largely learned and continued to develop throughout life. The concept of emotional intelligence is to be applauded not because it is totally new, but because it captures the essence of what our children or all of us need to know for productive and happy. In working situations too, emotional intelligence helps more than one's intellectual potential in terms of IQs or even professional skills and competence. Now, EI develops increasing age and experience as a person progresses from childhood to adulthood. Men and women have a personal profile of strengths and weaknesses, EI abilities, while women tend to be stronger in competencies based on empathy and social skills. Men do better based on the self-regulation. People's emotions are rarely put into words rather than they are expressed through their own cues. The key to intruding another's feeling is the ability to read non-verbal channels like communicating through eye contact, tone of voice, gestures, facial expressions, etc. Thus, emotional intelligence is not one single entity, but it is comprised of a mixture of attitudes, feelings, thoughts, and the action that results from them. The innate emotional process abilities of the individual become more important than his or her life experience to shape the emotional intelligence of the individual. Now let's move towards the characteristics of emotional intelligence. What are the characteristics of emotional intelligence? Right? Some of it are given in the textbook in a very brief manner. The first one is self-awareness. Why self-awareness is important for emotions? Why it is important for emotional intelligence? Because when we are aware, we are able to recognize feelings as they occur, discriminating between them, and being emotionally literate and being able to identify, label specific feelings and in ourselves and also in others. So, the ability to make intelligent decisions is usually a healthy balance between emotions, reasons, and being neither too emotional or too rational. Okay, so it's a combination of using both our mind and our heart. So recognizing and naming one emotions, knowledge of the cause of emotion, and recognize the difference between the feelings and actions. Number two, the second characteristic is a self-regulation, that is handling feelings so they are relevant to the current situation and we react appropriately. Now, frustration, tolerance, and anger management, eliminating verbal pull downs, fights, and group disruption, better able to express anger appropriately without resorting to violence. Fewer suspicions or expulsions, less aggressive or self destructive behavior, more positive feelings about self, school, family, and better at handling ourselves. So it is very important that we learn to self-regulate our emotion in order to have the emotional intelligence. The third aspect is the characteristic is the motivation, right? That is gathering up your feelings and directing yourself towards a goal. Despite self-doubt, despite inertia and impulsiveness, more responsible, able to be, we become more responsible and we are able to better focus on the task at hand and pay attention, less impulsive, more self-control, and improved scores on the achievement test. The fourth characteristic is empathy, which is recognizing feelings in others and turning into the verbal and non-verbal cues. Better be able to take another person's perspective, improved empathy and sensitivity to others' feelings. Better to be able to listening to others, being friendly, sociable, helpful in dealing with people, and open about their feeling. They make a good companions because they are pleasant and agreeable. Other feelings comfortable with them, liking them. In other words, they have a superior emotional and social skills in dealing with others. They derive gratification and reward from the interpersonal contact. So, empathy is one of the important characteristics of emotional intelligence. The fifth one is the social skills, right? What are there? That is handling interpersonal relationships, conflicts, resolution, negotiation, increased ability to analyze, understand relationships better, at resolving conflicts and negotiating disagreements, better at solving problems in relationship, more assertive and skilled at communication, more popular and outgoing, friendly, involved. So all this come, whatever we are mentioning, in terms of being friendly, in terms of being connecting, sharing, cooperation, and all this come under the social skills, okay, which is one of the important characteristics of emotional intelligence. In your book, see, they are given in very beautifully in the a small text. The Daniel Goleman's model outlines four main emotional intelligence areas. That is the four components of the area: the self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, self-management and relationship management are explained in detail. So you already see here in the box you'll find the self, that is the personal competence, and another box you'll find social competence. So recognition of self-awareness, that is the emotional self-awareness, accurate self-assessment and self-confidence. So when we have to look in others, right, social competence, it is basically empathy, service orientation and organization. The second part is the regulation. So when you look at the self-management, it is self-control, trustworthiness, conscientiousness, adaptability, achievement drive, and initiative. When we look at the relationship management, it is to do with the developing others, influence, communication, conflict management, leadership, change catalyst, building teamwork, and collaboration. Okay. So why is the emotional intelligence important? Okay. Why are we talking about its importance? Okay. So there are a lot of benefits when you are emotionally intelligent. Okay. So some of it is we begin from the physical health. If he's not able to manage his or her stress level, it can lead to serious health problems. As uncontrolled stress can raise blood pressure, suppress immune system, increase risk of heart attack and stroke, lead to infertility, and speed up the aging process. So the first step in improving emotional intelligence is to learn to relieve the stress, not take everything personally. The second aspect is the second thing is important. The second thing why emotional intelligence is important is it contributes to mental health, right? Now, uncontrolled stress can also impact one's mental health, leading to anxiety and depression. If one is not able to understand and manage emotions, is open to mood swing, while an inability to form strong relationships can lead to feeling lonely and isolated. By understanding and managing emotions, one can communicate effectively and express themselves, leading to stronger relations. So it helps in contributing for mental health. The third aspect is the workspace. Emotional intelligence will help you to be more successful. It will help you to manage behavior. It will help you navigate change, new trends, and social complexities, developing many skills associated with high performance, making personal decision effectively, and achieving positive results in increasing productivity. So, self-management exercise for developing emotional intelligence. So, what are the exercises that we can do in order that we are able to be emotionally intelligent? So, one of the important exercises that one can, learn and one can train oneself and consistently practice is the breathing exercise. That is the breath control. A 2-minute breathing exercise every day can reduce stress and burnout caused due to work, according to science. By consciously focusing on our breaths, taking deep breaths, especially during stressful situations, one can instantly calm the mind and it will help us to think right. Okay. So you see, especially breathing exercises, when you're talking about breath work, it's very important that we learn this exercises because even in yoga, there's something called pranayama, okay, where we are taught the breathing exercise. You can pick up any form of breathing exercise a few minutes every day because when you do the breathing exercises, you are able to, deal with your emotions also properly because it calms down your nerves. It calms down your whole body. It helps you focus better. It will help you to retain what you learn. So all these are benefits of breathing exercise. The next one is simple hacks, that can reduce immediate stress. So what is given in your book are journal your thoughts, right? Every day. That is, write down everything that you cannot express or share with others. Have a diary. Okay, journal is nothing but having a diary where you let out all your feelings in the diary. So it will help you to ventilate, it will help you to push out everything that you are not able to tell somebody else, right? Another thing, count to 10 before reaching or responding to call. Now, if you get very angry, instead of impulsively, reacting, instead of impulsively getting back to them, it is always good that you start, focusing on your breath and you start counting your breaths, right? So that way you are able to calm down and you don't react, but you are able to respond to conflict. Another important aspect, stay away from arguments as much as you can. It is always good that we don't get into arguments so that unnecessary we spoil the relationships. So stay away from arguments. Avoid confrontation if you cannot manage your emotions. Use phone or email to communicate. Right? So instead of being impulsively getting into argument and getting into confrontation, right? Where you don't even know what you are going to say and the other person is hurt, and later on you are going to regret, right? Instead, what you do, you don't get into any confrontation. You think about it and use a mail or a phone to be able to communicate better. Then share your problems with someone who are close to you to gain broader perspective of the matter. So in case you're very stressed and all, take a break and make sure that you talk to somebody about it. So this is how you keep stress away. So you practice the breathing exercises and then you also reduce your stress level by doing all this what we just spoke about. The third aspect is cognitive reconstruction, the most easiest thing to do. To gain a better understanding of any situation, try to alter your thinking. When you feel angry, sad, disappointed, ask yourself, can there be a different way of looking into the matter? Is there a lesson that I learned from experience? Could there be any other way of reacting to the situation? If this happens again, will I react in the same way? How would I have felt if I was in her or his position? Okay, so cognitive risk construction very commonly used in counseling. We also call it as CBT. This cognitive behavior therapy, where we teach cognitive reconstructions, right? So that even before you start buying your thought, what's coming in your mind, you are able to analyze it, you are able to question it, you are able to think about it, right? And then after all the analysis, after understanding yourself, then you are able to change those thought process. Okay, here we have a problem solving checklist, one of the most realistic and practical assessments for managing and regulating emotional awareness is by making a weekly chart with all the issues that you need to resolve within a week, including your personal and professional setbacks. So, what do? You set 5 to 10 minutes of your time every day, right? Where you come back to the problem and list the problems. Write it down, as a checklist and proceed from there. Okay, so they are given as a sample checklist here where the headings are problems, where you list down all your problems, right? And the next column is how are they impacting my life? And the third problem is strategies to solve them, right? What strategies are you developing in order to solve this problem? And then the last two columns will be if the problem is resolved, you tick resolved. If the problem is unresolved, you tick unresolved. Yeah, but at the same time, if it is unresolved, you start thinking about how that can be resolved and just not leave it at that. Relationship management. Emotional intelligence enhances with the power of building and sustaining long-term relationships at home and work. Managing a relationship is not an objective step-by-step method. We need to feel the emotions and find the perfect balance between holding and letting go. Here are some practical examples here, simple practices to help you build your relationship at personal and professional standard. Yeah. So in that number one is show your feelings. Communicate and express your emotion at the right way, whether it is love, anger, or disappointment. Express through clear communication. Bottling up feelings, besides ruining the relationships, also results in coming out in worse ways than better. Okay. So one of the important things in relationship management is to express your emotions, express your feeling instead of piling it up for a long time and blasting in one shot or just suppressing it for a longer duration of time. I mean, in one shot you release all this can destroy the relationship. So expressing feeling is the most healthy way to handle the relationship. The second thing is little things matter. In every relationship, it's the small things that can matter the most, like saying sorry, saying please, saying thank you. These are all golden words which will help us to bond with each other. Then explain. When facing a conflict with someone, remember to explain your actions and decisions. Communicate to resolve conflict and not to aggravate. And the last one is handle tough conversation. Look into things from others' perspective and put yourself, not judge or jump to conclusion. Accept if you are wrong and agree to disagree. Make sure you end the conversation on a positive note. Okay. So these are the few tips in handling relationship management. As I told you before, also if you're expressing your feeling, right, and make sure that we use the golden word, say please, thank you, then explain and handle such tough situation. Okay. So with this, we close the topic on emotional intelligence and we move on to positive psychological capital from block 3. Now, what is the objective of this unit 8, positive psychological capital? Right? To explain the concept of positive psychological capital explain the nature of the positive psychological capital, explain different components of positive psychological capital, and explain conflict management. Okay. Now, positive psychology is the psychology of human positive strength, coping, and optimal human functioning. The main focus on positive psychology is on the prevention as to how humans can use their potential in coping with the life stresses. It aims at making people happier by enhancing their positive qualities, potential, and understanding the meaning of a healthy life. Positive psychology's general stance is towards prevention. Okay. So, positive psychology enhances human functioning by recognizing strength as well as the deficiencies and environmental resources in addition to stresses. Now, positive psychological capital is a core area of positive psychology. Although the term psychological capital has been mentioned in various works on economic, investment, and sociology, we draw on the emergency positive psychology movement for our own definition. Very briefly, positive psychology got its start a few years ago when we research when research psychologist Martin Seligman challenged the field to change the preoccupation with what is wrong and dysfunctional to with people to what is right and good about them. Fred Luthers and colleagues have theoretically and empirically came up with a higher selves or more construct called psychological capital, right, or psych cap, which goes beyond economic, social, and human capital, right? So when it goes beyond economic means what you have physical and financial assets, social, who you know, a network of friends, and human capital, knowledge, skills, abilities, and experience. They defined it as having a confidence, self-efficacy to take on and put in the necessary efforts to succeed at challenging tasks. Positive capital also means making a positive contribution, optimism about succeeding now and in the future, persevering towards goal and when necessary redirecting paths to goals or in order to succeed, and when beset by the problem and adversity, sustaining and bouncing back and even beyond results to attain success. Okay, so this is what is the definition of positive psychological capital. What is the nature of the psychological capital? Okay, some of it are strength of an individual rather than the weakness. So psychological capital more focuses on the strengths of the person rather than the weaknesses, right? So it focuses on what the person is good at. It aims at building all the four components: hope, self efficacy, resilience, and optimism. As a whole, we have a strong relationship on the individual. Related studies, research studies have confirmed that high level of psychological capital are positively related to employee performance and job satisfaction, especially in the service industry. Developing even one of the four areas of hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism has a positive effect on the other elements. The next thing is that another important aspect of the nature is health and vitality of individual rather than illness and pathology. The concept of psychological capital is strongly linked to increasing well-being of work and life satisfaction. Especially high level of psychological capital has been found to positively influence well-being, health outcomes such as lower BMI, cholesterol levels, and satisfaction with the other relationships. Okay. The employees who strive to work at a to be assumed is generally more fulfilling, like due to strong relationship between the job and the job satisfaction. So this is about the psychological capital. Now, what are the components of psychological capital? Some of the components are self-efficacy, right, which is refers to an individual's belief in his or her capacity to execute behavior necessary to produce specific performance attainments. Self-efficacy is carried out by individual confidence in the ability to exert and control over one's motivation, behavior, and social environment. The second aspect is the cognitive self-evaluation that influence all matters of human experiences, including the goals for which people strive and the amount of energy expended towards the goal achievement and likelihood of attaining particular levels of behavioral performance. Self-efficacy beliefs are assumed to vary depending on the domain of functioning and circumstances surrounding the occurrence of behavior. Okay, so these are the components. Okay, now hope. According to Tinder, hope is defined as a positive motivational state that is based on interactively derived sense of success, which is dependent on an agency or goal-oriented energy, a pathways or a planning to meet goals. Agency things represent the pursuit will to achieve one goal, and pathway thinking are the perceived ability to develop routes to one's goal or to overcome obstacles. The pathway or the way forward dimensions of hope is defined here to make more important differentiation between the common use of term planning. It refers to make optimal use of all available resources to reach set goal by the individual. Together, the agency and the pathways signify the disposition for goal-oriented positive thinking that is distinct from the construct, similar constructs such as self-efficacy. There is considerable evidence yeah, where did we yeah, that it has a positive impact on the academic and athletic performance also. Okay. Next is the optimism. According to the APA, that is the American Psychological Association, optimism is hopefulness, the attitude that good things will happen and that people wishes or aims should ultimately be fulfilled. Optimists are people who anticipate confident of attaining their desired goals. Most individuals lie somewhere on the spectrum between the strong and relative side, stable or stimuli, situational tendency in one direction or the other. Optimism is commonly used, but Seligman definition draws the attribution theory in terms of two crucial dimensions. One is the explanatory style of good and the bad events. The second is the permanent and the pervasiveness. Specifically, optimists interpret bad events as being only temporary. That is, I'm exhausted. While pessimists tend to interpret bad events as pessimists try to interpret bad events as being permanent. I am all washed up. The opposite is true for good events, where optimist makes a permanent attribution and the pessimist a temporary attribution. Whereas the peacemakers has to do with time, but sinners has to do with space. For bad events, optimists make specific attribution. I'm just a computer. Yeah. Whereas the permanence of what to do with the time, right? Optimist makes specific attribution. I had a problem with this computer game, while pessimist makes a universal contribution. I'm just a computer illiterate. The opposite is true for good events. As an optimist, a computer whiz, and while a pessimist doesn't know Excel. Seligman provides some videos from evidences of the positive impact of measured optimism or as a desirable workplace outcomes, reporting salesperson. High performance and retention in the metropolitan life insurance company. Let's move on to resilience. According to APA, the process and the outcome of successfully adapting to difficult or challenging life experience, especially through mental, emotional, and behavioral flexibility and adjustment to external and internal demands is defined as resilience. A number of factors contribute to how well people adapt to adversities. Predominant among them are the ways in which individuals view and engage the world, the availability and the quality of the social resources, and the strength to be able to cope with all the challenges of life. So there are specific coping strategies, psychological research demonstrates that the resources and the skill associated with more positive adaptation, that is greater resilience, can be cultivated. Psychological research demonstrates the existence of a skill associated with the new positive development. According to Mastan, there is an evidence that resilience can come from the everyday magic of ordinary life, normative normal human beings. Yeah. From the everyday magic or ordinary normative human resources and has a profound implications for promoting competence and human capital in individual and society. According to Quote, the common characteristics of resilient people are a staunch acceptor of reality, a deep belief, often buttressed by strongly held values, life is meaningful, and the uncanny ability to improve and adapt to significant changes. Okay? So now we move to the conflict management. According to APA, conflict is the occurrence of a minutely antagonistic or opposing forces, including events, behavior, desires, attitudes, and emotions. The general term has been more specific and meaningful, while the other terms, while the other term is the opposite. Okay, so the general terms have specific meanings within different areas of psychology. Example, in psychoanalytic theory, it refers to the opposition between the incompatible instinctual impulses or between incompatible requests of the mental structure. That is the ego and the superego. That may be the source of neutrons or it results in the use of defense mechanism other than the sublimation. It is a source of neurosis if result in the use of different mechanism other than the sublimation. The interpersonal relation conflict denotes the government. In interpret, the conflict denotes a disagreement, discord, and friction that occur when the action or belief of one or more individuals are unacceptable and they are resisted by others. Now, conflict is a personal and subjective experience. As each individual can perceive and manage the same conflict in a different manner, conflict doesn't necessarily have an objective basis. It depends on the perception of the specific situation, while the perception is defined by subjective and personal. Conflict can be understood, can be unidirectional. One party can feel frustrated or thwarted by the other side, the second party can feel hardly aware of and doesn't pursue the same. So, what are the some of the characteristics of conflict? Conflict is a process, it's dynamic, right? And sometimes it can also pass through several stages. It is a process of resulting from the tension, the interpersonal relationship between team members. Yeah. According to Thomas and Kilman, there are 5 styles. Okay. No, no. I'm sorry, I just skipped this one. Yeah. That is, so we are understanding the characteristics of conflict. One is it is a process and it is dynamic in nature, right? And it is a process resulting from tension and interpersonal interaction between the team members because of real or perceived differences. And then conflict concerns cognitive and affective tensions when some person perceives block the goals and disagreements, yeah, for he or she, although not necessarily for fear and anger. Now, what are the different types of conflict? Okay, so our book in the book there is 3 different types of conflict. One is the approach conflict, another one is the avoidance conflict, and the last one is the approach avoidance conflict. Let's take each one. Okay, what is approach conflict? Approach conflict is a conflict where individual chooses two desirable outcomes. Example, individuals getting selected for 2 jobs or colleges he or she was aspiring. That is approach, where you have the choices to make between the best. Then there is avoidance. Avoidance is again a different combo because an individual has to make a choice between the two unattractive outcomes. Example, if a student has not completed the project work and at the same time she or wants to avoid punishment from teachers and parents for not attending school or deciding on both. In some situation, an individual making choices among the two leadership. Yeah. In some situation, individual making choices among two undesirable, painful choices and picking the one that is less painful, right? And the last one is the approachables. Occurs when one event or a goal has been both attractive and unattractive outcomes. Getting selected for a job but being posted in a remote area. So you are happy you got the job, but then now you have to think of going beyond city limits or some other state. Conflict management techniques. Now we have the textbook has given us a few, techniques, around five of them, as to how we can resolve conflicts. Okay, and how do we manage the conflicts? Okay, so according to the Thomas and Kilburn, there are five sides techniques of conflict management that in an organization. They are competing. What is competing? An individual who uses conflict resolution strategy of competing tries to satisfy their own desires at the expense of the other parties involved. The second thing is the compromising. In this, the strategy of compromising involves finding an acceptable resolution that will partly but not entirely satisfy the concerns of all parties involved, right? And the third one is collaborating. Using collaboration, right, involves finding a solution that entirely satisfies the concerns of all individual parties working together. And the fourth is avoiding, trying to avoid the conflict, hoping that it will get resolved by itself as the time passes. And the last one is accommodating. Using the strategy of accommodating to resolve conflict eventually involves taking steps to satisfy the other party's concerns or demands at the expense of their own needs or desires workload. Okay. So these are the conflict management techniques. Now, how to develop the positive psychology? How to develop the positive psychological capital, PsyCap. Okay. So, in PsyCap, development interventions, which typically last for 2 to 3 years, widely recognized developmental approaches. Each of the four psychological resources are integrated synergistically and tailored to be specific at workplace context. The shotgun approach is recognized as more effective than the individual strategies or activities, according to Martin Seligman. Yeah, because of the shared commonalities across the psychological caps constituent resources, developing one's resources tend to boost the other's resources as well. A typical psychological capital development intervention includes goal setting, which it is self-explanatory, generation of pathways, generating pathways, right, to be able to resolve the issues, mental rehearsals or goal pursuit through various generated pathways, contingency planning to overcome obstacles. That is, you start mentally rehearsing to see how this can be resolved. Okay. And then approach oriented goals. I will do this, or emphasize on avoidance rules. I will stop doing that. Right. So, where you find solutions and you are making decisions to do something that will help you or not to do something that will help you. Then specific and measurable goals, right, which is one of the smart plan approach, right, where you choose specificity and then you also measure as you set your goals. And then frequent milestones are encouraged, right? So as you keep moving on, you frequently, check your milestones, right? So that you feel encouraged, you feel motivated. And then small groups are used for added perspective, social support, encouragement, and shared experiences. Through these activities, the participants simultaneously develop the hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism. Activities are customized to specific organizational, job, or personal contexts which are response, like hope. Hope and optimism are both personality traits that have been linked to physiological and psychological well-being. Enriching the following three components have found to be successful in developing hope. One is the goal setting and perceived ability. That is the pathway thought. The concept of hope is strongly based on the belief that the individual wants to achieve goals. Well, generally, approach-oriented goals move towards something are emphasized over avoidance-oriented. That is moving away from something. Goals as mentioned below. So one is the motivation, the agency of thoughts, that autonomy and meaning have to be found to be key factors in creating intrinsic motivation with employees. Self-efficacy. Bandura defines self-efficacy efficacy as people's belief about the capabilities to produce effects. There are two key ingredients to self-efficacy. One is the outcome expectancy, that is the examination of what needs to be done. Another one is efficacy expectancy, examination on your own capability to do what is needs to be done. And then there are also three ways to strengthen efficacy. What is it? Focus on past success, that is mastery of experiences. When you have done that, you have succeeded, so that will boost your confidence. Looking at past success as a robust way to increase levels of self-efficacy. Copy other people's social modeling, and some people in similar situation overcoming obstacles increase the belief that one can do it. Reframe negative experience, which is again a psychological response which we teach in counseling, different kinds of counseling people who come with different kinds of issues. Okay. Another important one is copy other people's, that is social modeling. Seeing people in similar situation who are overcoming obstacles increase the belief that one too can do. So when you look at successful people who are doing it, then your thought will come that if they can do it, why not me? Right? Then reframe negative experiences, again, like a psychological response. When we interpret our physical and emotional reactions in situations of stress and tension affects how we judge fatigue and vulnerability to stress. People with high level of self-efficacy are able to see a state of affective arousal or as an energizing facilitator of performance. Resilience. Resilience is the capacity to bounce back from adversity and grow stronger from overcoming negative events. According to Diana Porter, resilience is a combination of the following three capacities. One is the one is to face reality in a situation of despair and hopelessness. The best way to is to face reality rather than just think positively. And then search for meaning, hoping one to find a great meaning in life that will strengthen their level of resilience, right? To have a meaningful life is very important. Improvise. The ability to deal with situation with whatever we have at hand is a strong predictor of our ability to bounce back from adversity. It is the ability to improvise and find new ways to reach the goal. And the last one is the optimism. It's been defined as making positive attribution about succeeding now and in the future. It can be developed by exercise of accepting the past, appreciating the moment, and viewing the future as a source of opportunity. The way we access the past events have a major impact on how we predict the future. Okay, so with this we close this, and then you have the unit 8 we close. Summary is given. Check your progress. Okay, and then you are having all the uh, glossary where you'll be able to understand if there is a model questions. Okay, please go through all this, students, and ensure that you read it very well. Yeah, so that you'll be able to understand. Okay, so now with this we close the unit 8, that is the psychological capital. Let us see what is unit 9. We have psychocybernetics, stress and failure motivation. We have comprehension, sense of direction, courage, failure of mechanism, positive thinking. Okay, so with this, we close today unit 7 and unit 8. That is psychosocial competencies. That is unit 7. And the other one is the psychological capital. Okay, so tomorrow we continue with the same other topics where we'll talk about unit 9 and 10. Which is psycho-cybernetics. And then there is also unit 10, see if you can complete personal development. Okay. So thank you very much for listening, students. And please go through the textbook, go through the definitions, go through the summary. It's all very easy. So prepare yourself. Okay. Thank you and God bless you.